¿Qué tal amigos ganaderos? Bienvenidos a esta edición especial de la Unión en tu Rancho 360. Hoy nos encontramos en el estado de Montana, en Estados Unidos, donde conoceremos varios ranchos que crían la raza Angus. La raza Angus no es solo un referente a nivel mundial, representa una base para el mejoramiento genético en el estado de Sonora. Acompáñenos en este recorrido.
En los extensos prados del estado de Montana, en los Estados Unidos, domina la raza Angus. Reconocida mundialmente por su calidad genética y excelente desempeño en producción de carne, Angus se ha convertido en una base fundamental para el mejoramiento del hato ganadero en Sonora. En este episodio de La Unión en tu Rancho 360, acompáñanos en el Montana Angus Tour, un evento que reúne a productores, criadores y representantes de la Asociación Americana de Angus con el propósito de conocer de cerca los procesos de cría y selección que dan origen a su alta genética. Durante este recorrido conversaremos con expertos y productores que comparten su experiencia en el manejo y desarrollo de esta raza y cómo la innovación genética que aquí se produce tiene un impacto directo en la ganadería sonorense. Porque en Sonora, la ganadería no solo es una tradición, es una visión que mira al futuro, fortalecida por la genética, el conocimiento y la colaboración internacional.
¿Qué tal amigos de la Unión en tu Rancho 360? Nos encontramos aquí con el CEO de la Asociación Americana de Angus, Mark McCauley. Hi Mark, nice to meet you.
Thanks for having me on.
So, what can you tell us about the American Angus Association?
Well, the American Angus Association has been around a long time. The Angus in the United States has a rich history, and the association's been around getting close now to over 140 years, and lots of progress. Lots of things over the years have changed. Lots of very progressive programs around our data, around obviously our branded beef program and certified Angus beef. We've got a media company. We've got some a genetics entity, a foundation that we can support our youth and shows and things. So lots of great things going on, and the association is Angus cattle are really having a moment here in the U.S. and continuing to grow.
And what do you consider to be the most important contribution of Angus breed global cattle ranching?
You know, I think at the end we have to take care of the consumer, and the consumer has to have a great beef eating experience, and without that, our product is not going to have the demand that we need. And I think Angus has really put a focus on our industry to be able to produce a high quality, highly marbled product. But at the same time, we've got the Angus cow that's able to go out here. We're here in Montana. She can go out and forage, utilize the natural resources and the forages that are here, and bring that big heavy calf in every year. So the Angus breed has that maternal excellence, but also has the ability to deliver that great steak and great eating experience for our consumer.
Okay, and besides that, what other characteristics would you think set Angus apart from other breeds?
You know, I think we have such a large breed today in terms of numbers. We have a lot of diversity in our breed, and we have a lot of data behind our breed. Our breeders have been very, very progressive at adopting genomic technology, at collecting weights and measures, and so I think we have a data advantage in the Angus breed, and I think we just simply have, depending on what you need, if you need maternal excellence or if you need growth and carcass traits, the one breed of Angus has all of that to offer.
What programs does the American Angus Association promote to support producers in genetics?
We have a number of different things. We do a lot in genomics, so DNA testing through our AGI entity, where we can take the data that our producers turn in, that they collect, put that with the genomics, and produce EPDs, expected progeny differences, back into our producers' hands for them to make selection decisions and breed the cattle that they need. That's probably the biggest. The data and the tools, the breeding tools that we can put in our breeders' hands is probably the most significant thing that we offer.
Okay. And how does the American Angus Association view collaboration with cattle producers from countries like Mexico?
We've continued to work a little bit more globally over the last few years. We have a World Angus evaluation that we've started to work with Australia and Canada, and so we've continued to look for other partners in other countries that might want to be able, that would have similar goals and objectives to us and the American Angus Association and our other partners in the World Angus evaluation. So always opportunities for to find progressive breeders that want that want to be a part of something like that. We know that genetics are more exchanged globally today than ever before, and so we think there's some really fun things to think about on the future.
Okay, any suggestions to people or producers that are thinking about starting or growing their Angus breed?
I think it's always about finding a breeding objective and having a well-defined goal. There's so many different ways to be successful in this business, so many different types of cattle you could raise, different markets that you could focus on. Where I see probably the biggest mistake is folks that maybe don't have that very clearly defined purpose and goal that they're striving for. So I would just say, define what you want to be, your program to be, and then stay consistent and stay committed to that, and it'll play out in the long term.
Well, thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you.
Nos encontramos aquí en el estado de Montana. Can you tell us your name, please?
Daryl Stevenson.
Okay, Daryl, are you a member of the Montana Angus Association?
Yes, ma'am, I am. I'm actually third generation. My grandparents, clear back in the 1940s, bought their first registered Angus heifers, and so I'm actually third generation on our family operation.
Okay, so you've basically been an Angus producer for your whole life?
Literally was born into the business, and for what it's worth, my grandfather actually was a charter member for the Montana Angus Association.
Oh, okay. And well, Montana is known for its strong cattle industry. What role does the Angus breed play in the region of Montana?
Angus is king in Montana. It dominates the state. There's hardly even a second place in the sense of how the breed was developed. I mean, if you go back generationally, back to the 1960s or 70s, Angus was not prominent then. And then our development in the performance testing of the cattle and the maternal strength of the breed is what really propped us up to dominate the landscape today. I don't think it's a reach for me to say that 90% of all the cow herd in the state of Montana is Angus influenced.
Wow, that's great. And what makes Montana an ideal environment for Angus cattle?
Well, first of all, we're rich in natural resources in the state. We've got vast grasslands. We're standing in some beautiful mountain setting at the moment. This state is really diverse for terrain. We go from the western part of the state, which is higher elevation mountain country, tougher winters, to the eastern plains, and our natural resource is grass. And it's not an easy climate. We're challenged environmentally. We do have long winters, short growing seasons. In fact, where I live, we would be about 5,000 feet in elevation, and I would annually deal with only about 100 days of frost-free days, and so it's an incredibly short growing season.
Where do you live exactly?
White Sulphur Springs, Montana.
Oh, okay. How does Montana producers contribute to the overall strength of the Angus cattle?
I love to speak about this. So I'll talk about the American Angus Association to begin with. Annually, the American Angus Association would register about 300,000 head a year. This year, we actually went up in registrations. I think we finished out at about 309,000 head. The state of Montana would be the #1 state in the United States for the amount of cattle that are registered, transferred, as well as #1 for performance data submitted. Those traits would include birth weights, weaning weights, yearling weights, foot claw, foot angle, pap, and we are the leading state for our maternal plus program as well. So to put that in perspective, in Montana, we would annually register about 30 to 32,000 head, so we would be 10% of the entire population of the American Angus Association.
Wow.
So then if I actually take that into the bull side of things, from all of the bulls that are sold and reported annually to the American Angus Association, 20%, 1 out of 5 in America is from this area.
Oh, wow. Okay. Do you know how many associates do you have in Montana?
How many members?
Yes.
I actually don't have an answer to how many members.
Okay, that's fine. What genetic qualities are most valued in Angus cattle today?
I think everything first and foremost starts with the cow. So the maternal strength of this breed is what we built this industry to be in, and I think it's going to have a lot to do with the growth of the cow herd on the rebound of those cow numbers. But secondarily to that, we've proven through scientific research that we've not only excelled at maternal traits, but we can, on our terminal traits and our performance traits, we can outcompete every other breed actually in the industry as well.
Okay. And how is technology and data management improving breeding programs here in Montana?
Data is critically important. It is one of the very, very important reasons why Angus cattle have become king, not only for the state of Montana, but for the country as a whole. So I'll give you an example. My wife and I were married 30 years ago, and at that point in time, 35% of all harvested cattle in the United States were black-hided. Not necessarily Angus, but black-hided. 30 years later, today, we are now 74 to 75% of all harvested cattle in the United States. That happened because of the data management. And globally, what we manage in the American Angus Association is actually the largest database, and it's very important to our genetic progression.
Okay, that's great. And how important is collaboration between Montana Angus producers and international ranchers such as Mexicans?
I love that question. I have as much international experience as I have a considerable amount of international experience. I've worked with producers from pretty much every traditional beef producing country in the world. I've spent a lot of time in Central Asia, and we've marketed to, I've sold live cattle all over the world. I've sold frozen semen and embryos. Our involvement, for instance, with the World Angus Forum was just a fantastic event in the month of May. It was actually held in Australia, and we had enough Montanans attending that as they were introducing countries, who's here from Uruguay and who's here from the Czech Republic, it got to the point that they were recognizing Montana equal to several countries. So I think with the opportunity to source genetics today and frozen genetics, it's been just a real privilege to be able to provide seed stock all around the world.
Okay, that's great. And what opportunities do you see for Mexican cattle producers who want to integrate Angus genetics into their herds?
So first of all, the strength of that mother cow that I mentioned earlier. I mean, if you want a cow base that is built on the functional foundation, the fertility and the flesh ability to build upon, I think that's first and foremost. One of the strengths of the Angus breed is actually its diversity. And so if you are aiming at the terminal carcass traits, we can outcompete and change things in one generation. It's such a highly heritable trait. But if you need to add performance, there's no question that the genetics are here in the Angus breed today that can actually change that in a generation as well. So it's a very, I think the strength of the breed is the diversity in itself. There's a lot of different kinds of breeders within the state and within the country. And I think you need to identify as a breeder in Mexico what best fits your environment, and then seek out those seed stock providers that have like-minded philosophies, and tie yourself to those kind of breeders and create a partnership.
Okay. And as a Montana Angus producer, what suggestions will you give to Mexican producers who are starting out or growing their herds?
Well, the first thing is actually in the world that we live in today, there's access to information everywhere. I strongly encourage everybody to learn as much as possible. Ask questions, read, you can surf the internet. I mean, information is very accessible out here, and study and ask questions about how to better not only your breeding program, but the breed itself. Once you do that, start diving into the information, the data, and identify the genetics that can move you forward, and ask the questions on what works best to actually get you there. So we can do more with these cattle today in a couple of years. I've seen more progress in the breed, for instance, in the last 5 years than maybe the 20 years prior to that. And it's because of the genomic progression that we've been able to do as a collective group of breeders.
Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you
So
for
glad that
everything.
you're here. And hello to everybody back home in Mexico.
Thank you.
La experiencia vivida en Montana nos recuerda que la ganadería es un trabajo que se construye con conocimiento, pasión y visión de futuro. Cada aprendizaje, cada intercambio de ideas y cada genética mejorada representa un paso más hacia una ganadería más fuerte, productiva y sustentable. Porque en Sonora seguimos trabajando con orgullo y compromiso para que la calidad de nuestro ganado siga siendo un reflejo del esfuerzo y trabajo. La Unión en tu Rancho 360, conectando experiencias, compartiendo conocimiento y fortaleciendo la ganadería de Sonora. Síguenos en nuestras redes sociales.